So you're returning to a place that shaped you, that helped and hindered you, growing up amongst friends and tormentors, learning about the rights and wrongs. Oh no, wait, I'm not talking about a high school reunion. I'm talking about Resident Evil 4. And that reunion is what we call Village. Warning, there's going to be quite a lot of spoilers. You know, the thing that always got to me about RE was the characters themselves, the people who you played and survived with. These folk weren't the things like elves and furries, and whatever this was meant to be. But with these guys, there was a slight edge of realism to them, as though you can kind of see yourself in their shoes. Like, what would I do if I was in that bad situation? Situations that started from people who were using science for good. So as long as it got that right, it was always an RE game. And when you're fighting off monsters that look like this, it makes me think that they can design anything. The shark is just too big to jump, just to think we might be one step away from running from a giant mutated kiwi. But what was with the whole RE4 thing? Well, from the start with its teasers and trailers, uploaded last year, it had the look of 4 all over it, with its European Gothic aesthetic, with more of a focus on action, along with its tropes and gimmicks, but minus any of the cast. Village continues from 7, and once again we're even winners. And I will say that I like the dude better in this. Once again, he spends a lot of it being confused and terrified, but there's more stake to it. He wasn't exploring around to find his girl, he's going into a hellhole to get his kid back, in a way that makes him a little badass. A lot of that comes from the voice acting that hits all the right notes, with the other similarities between, and yes, RE4 should be an audio clip on a soundboard for most of this. The locations are a real visual feast, with its old worn-down structures and livestock freely roaming the place. It's got more of an atmosphere to it, with a lot of dead silence that reminds you it's not if, it's when. When being when you're gonna meet the monstrosities Capcom always brings. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the visuals are really beautiful, especially with that vista at the beginning. You even get to know some of the residents that have survived, getting to understand cryptically how things went south, and how they're probably gonna get even souther. I really like that you get to experience their stress and turmoil. I just wish we could have got to know a little more about them. I understand that there's more context with the credits with those images, but that worked better with said game. These people are real characters in the story, but they're killed off before we get to care. So the potential's kind of lost. I think what they should have done is have some survivors bunkered down in the village. That does work well as a hub world. You have to come back from time to time to check on them and help them, while they can provide you more info about what's going on. I love the stuff in the Louisa house. It's kind of like you're in some old spooky 18th century artwork with its light and shadows. But you do get to see a lot of this top-notch art direction throughout the adventure. The main story is kind of like 7. You have to take down all the bosses to get to the end. You even get a glimpse of them all together. And like 7, the villains are a lot more enjoyable to watch than the heroes. But are the 4 lords references of something? Like the way the family in 7 represented types of American horror flicks. Is there something more to a vampire, a doll, an aquatic beast, and a man with magnokinesis? Well, they could be. Here's a theory. Think of these folks standing in for the yokai. Who are the yokai? Well, I don't want to get into it, but they're Japanese mythical creatures. Could the big lady herself be Takaana? Angie being Hinagami? Monroe being a Kappa? And Heisenberg, or Carl, be a Kana Zubichio? Because, that's a Carl thing to be, right? Just throwing it out there, see if anyone catches it. Each one of these guys' turf is pretty sick. Each design had its own style, with the castle returning more to the whole Resident Evil format, with a sudden departure to a dollhouse where you don't even really fire a single shot, with more of a focus on psychological horror and including challenging your mental skills. I wish the other 2 parts could have been more inventive. Maybe Monroe's part is meant to be just one big continuous action scene, but there's just too many moments where you gotta stop and think instead of act. It's probably gonna work better for speedrunners, but not really in the normal practice. Unfortunately, I really wish, again, we got to know more about Donna. That's what Wiki's for, but it's kind of a lost opportunity. Well, at least we get to know her more than... what was his name again? The factory level is hell of a looker. Well, inside. What really works about it is it's not as much stylized, it's effective because it feels otherworldly, like you're in some kind of industrial hell. I guess what the developers were going for is it's a mix of everything we've gone through before, with the other Free Lords, maybe. The common enemies you come across are pretty good. While there's nothing that can dethrone the Regenerators, Iron Maidens, and those Gators. Yeah, from 5, I really like those things. In this you get beast guys who are pretty intimidating when you approach them. They slowly rise in that badass manner. The whole action element is a little awkward. The stuff with Leon works because it was designed for you to shoot first, ask questions later, but with Ethan there's more of a slow, awkward feel to it. It was done like that on purpose, but you can't have it both ways. The gamer can't be scared and thrilled at the same time. And yes, there's the Duke. Those meme on arrival characters that make everything instantly that iconic. I love neutral characters like this guy. With a lot of these merchant characters, it always feels like they're playing you against each other. You feel like this Butterball might be selling stuff to Mother Miranda. So at the end of this battle, he's probably going to be the one who comes out on top, Yojimbo style. True capitalist. He gives you your standard weapons, and I kind of like that there's a old school tech feel to them, while someone like Chris and Skippy gets the big toys. Interesting that there's only one place in the whole game where you hear the sweet save music. Talking about music, the soundtrack really nails down the mood. Sometimes it feels like you're subconsciously listening to it. And the tracks for the action parts work fine too. With a lot of other stuff, you can tell how polished it is, with the things you can discover and Easter eggs, such as the way the menu changes as you progress, the baby cartoon that kind of foreshadows future events. I can watch this all day. Also, goats. Another major problem is the script is not as tight as 7. While the writing in the series never has been stellar, the whole thing got off the leash in the 3rd act. When you realize that Ethan was dead, you're kind of thinking, where are they going with this? I guess this is the course of how these RE sagas go. I don't know what they're planning with the daughter, but she's going to continue this oddness. So is there any deeper theme going on apart from it just proving that a dark fairy tale would be incredibly dark if you were a part of it? Well, it's pretty grim in some ways. I mean, in a way, everyone's kind of a victim, including the Unfab 4 here. It's interesting to note that in the original storybook, we see the father fighting off the witch, but we never see him die. Is that giving some kind of clue that Ethan might still be alive? Or I guess he was never alive to begin with. I don't think anyone in this series really truly goes. For all we know, it could be Wesker behind all this. But if there's any light to this darkness, Ethan's heroic efforts changes it from a mother sacrificing someone out of fear to a father sacrificing himself for love. So, that was Resident Evil Village.